When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Alfred Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her own life. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Decisions, not conditions, determine what a man is. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedom, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Success, like happiness, is the unexpected side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. Our greatest human freedom is that, despite whatever our physical situation is in life, we are always free to choose our thoughts. What is to give light must endure burning. Ever more people today have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. It isn't the past which holds us back, it's the future, and how we undermine it today. Live as if you were living a second time, and as though you had acted wrongly the first time. No man should judge unless he asks himself in absolute honesty whether in a similar situation he might not have done the same. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. Being tolerant does not mean that I share another one's belief, but it does mean that I acknowledge another one's right to believe and obey his own conscience. Man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life. If we take a man as he is, we make him worse. But if we take a man as he should be, we make him capable of becoming what he can be. You don't create your mission in life, you detect it. The point is not what we expect from life, but rather what life expects from us. The quest for meaning is the key to mental health and human flourishing. Each of us carries a unique spark of the divine, and each of us is also an inseparable part of the web of life. Each of us carries a unique spark of the divine, and each of us is also an inseparable part of the web of life. In times of crisis, people reach for meaning. Meaning is strength. Our survival may depend on our seeking and finding it. Pain is only bearable if we know it will end, not if we deny it exists. Nothing is likely to help a person overcome or endure trouble than the consciousness of having a task in life. When a man cannot find meaning, he numbs himself with pleasure. Just as a small fire is extinguished by the storm, whereas a large fire is enhanced by it. Likewise, a weak faith is weakened by predicament and catastrophe, whereas a strong faith is strengthened by them. Success is total self-acceptance. Life asks of every individual a contribution, and it is up to that individual to discover what it should be. God is the partner of your most intimate soliloquies. For the meaning of life differs from man to man, from day to day, and from hour to hour. What matters, therefore, is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning of a person's life at a given time. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. What you have experienced, no power on earth can take from you. Between stimulus and response is the freedom to choose. Happiness cannot be attained by wanting to be happy. It must come as the unintended consequence of working for a goal greater than oneself. Self-actualization cannot be attained if it is made an end in itself, but only as a side effect of self-transcendence. View your life from your funeral, looking back at your life experiences. What have you accomplished? What would you have wanted to accomplish but didn't? What were the happy moments? What were the sad? What would you do again, and what you wouldn't? I do the unpleasant tasks before I do the pleasant ones. Success, like happiness, is the unexpected side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. It is always important to have something yet to do in life. Sunday neurosis, that kind of depression which afflicts people who become aware of the lack of content in their lives when the rush of the busy week is over and the void within themselves becomes manifest. I do not forget any good deed done for me, and I do not carry a grudge for a bad one. At any moment, man must decide, for better or for worse, what will be the monument of his existence. For the world is in a bad state, but everything will become still worse unless each of us does his best. The human being is a deciding being. Life can be pulled by goals just as surely as it can be pushed by drive. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is. Rather, he must recognize that it is he who is asked. The salvation of man is through love and in love. A life of short duration could be so rich in joy and love that it could contain more meaning than a life lasting 80 years. Consider a movie. It consists of thousands upon thousands of individual pictures, and each of them makes sense and carries a meaning. Yet the meaning of the whole film cannot be seen before its last sequence is shown. However, we cannot understand the whole film without having first understood each of its components, each of the individual pictures. Isn't it the same with life? Doesn't the final meaning of life too reveal itself, if at all, only at its end, on the verge of death? Our attitude towards what has happened to us in life is the important thing to recognize. Once hopeless, my life now is hopeful, but it did not happen overnight. The last of human freedom, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, is to choose one's own way. Man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them. Man is capable of changing the world for the better if possible, and of changing himself for the better if necessary. I recommend that the Statue of Liberty be supplemented by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. In his creative work, the artist is dependent on sources and resources deriving from the spiritual unconscious. It is the pursuit of happiness that thwarts happiness. A sound philosophy of life, I think, may be the most valuable asset for a psychiatrist to have when he is treating a patient.